First of all, thank you very much for inviting me here. This is not the first time I'm in this auditorium, probably empty number of times before. And I always enjoyed coming in this institution and talking to people, and students especially. You'll be a little surprised because all this time so far I was talking about information technology and IT and computers, while basically I'm a chartered accountant, cost accountant, company secretary. I was in food industry for the first 5 years, 20 years in IT, and now I'm trying to be in healthcare. And more in biotechnology. The subject today we are going to look at, and next probably 15 minutes, that's what the time given to me. 15 minutes, probably I will quickly cover the topic which I was given, and then probably we'll have a question answer. Now, when you talk about healthcare, I mean, this is the way why I sort of shifted at age of my 50 to from information technology to biotechnology or healthcare, thinking that I'm coming in healthcare, and the topic today given also is healthcare in grassroots level of bottom pyramid and so on. But when I started getting more in details, I realized that what we talk about healthcare is actually not healthcare. But what healthcare services we are talking about is basically disease management services. Because we never go to the doctor or the hospital when we are healthy. We only go to doctor when we are not well. And if that is the case, the current medicine system that is supposed to give us the health care actually only manages the diseases, if at all we face. Fortunately, the life expectancy in this era is increasing. People are likely to live up to 90 years easily. And they say in Japan, probably a 90-year-old guy will be taking his father to meet his grandfather. And if that is the case, probably at our homes we have seen that post-70, people start getting the deterioration of the quality of life. You start with a knee problem, you start with the diabetes, you have hypertension with the stress that you go throughout your life. If you are a little more unlucky, you start getting things like Alzheimer's. You are worse, you get Parkinson's, for which there is no cure. The current medicine system, instead of worrying about your health, it tries to convert your every disease into chronic. Fortunately, unfortunately, I'm also on the board of a pharma company. We love this medicine system because the moment you get diabetes, you start popping my pills throughout your life. So you're my customer. So on every quarter to quarter, when pharma industry gives numbers, it keeps on increasing the number of sales because you can't just get relief out of that. So we don't cure diabetes. We don't cure hypertension. We convert into chronic. You pop the pills throughout your life. So we manage your disease somehow. We tried a symptomic relief to all of you. This is not healthcare. What is healthcare, basically, is to ensure that you don't fall sick in the first place. So this is a preventive measure. Then you talk about diagnostics. Because if you want to remain healthy, then you have to have diagnostics. Now look at the current diagnostic system. The current diagnostic system is only a postmortem. For example, most of us at my age feel that we must do our stress test every 1 year. But believe me, the stress test, in spite of a cardiologist standing next to you and you're running on the treadmill, gives the perfectly right numbers on the machine, does not guarantee you that next 5 minutes you will not have cardiac arrest. Because what it tells you is that so far there's nothing gone wrong. Now the way in which world is looking at healthcare today is, can I have the predictive diagnostics? Whereby, at a student sitting behind, at your age, you go to a doctor, not because you are not feeling well, but because you want to understand or you take care of your health. And you do run a diagnostics, you get biomarkers, and just technology that we are looking at currently to bring it here and in Asia Pacific, is that you take your saliva, apply those certain biomarkers, and the way in which probably I'm saying is sounds so simple, but it's not so simple. And you can predict what is the probability that you will suffer a cardiac problem at age of 50? And then the doctor starts telling you how to change your lifestyle, how to change your dietary habits, so that every year or every 2-3 years when you go through this biomarker test, the probability starts coming down, and therefore you remain healthy. And that is what we call healthcare. So please remember, the hospitals, or what we call as healthcare delivery system, does not take care of your health. It takes care of your pain. So there's a pain management, there is a disease management, and that's what we talk in this country as healthcare. And that's why I actually came to this business, saying that in 1990 or 85, 86, when I got into IT, I thought India was poised to take a jump in IT industry in the world, which actually happened, fortunately. I think today, as a country, we are poised to take the similar kind of jump in the healthcare side. And believe me, the next $1 trillion business will be not only healthcare, but it will be what we call as a well-being business. And what do you mean by well-being business? It includes healthcare, it includes biotechnology, it includes predictive diagnostics, it includes curative technology, it includes nutraceuticals, it includes right from your gyms to fitness centers. So any one of you want to get into this kind of new $1 trillion business of the next few decades? Because all of us, I mean, I've got very good friends of mine who made a lot of money in the IT industry and in the world. All of us are going to spend our money on healthcare because we want to remain healthy. All of us want to remain healthy. But few of them have got more money, and obviously they're going to spend a lot of money on health. And if you're going to spend money on health, I want to be that my income. Right? That's the simple economics that business works with. Now, question is, as a country, what we do about healthcare. First, as I said in the beginning, that we have to change the definition of healthcare. What we're talking about healthcare is not something that we follow in India, and rather in most of the countries in the world. In some developed countries now, the healthcare is taken as healthcare, what it means, and not disease management. Now, preventing is the first thing that we should do. And that's why there's a green movement, and there is the environmental worries, pollution, and those kind of things are talked more about because you're worried about your health. You talk about stress. You talk about your neuro issues that come up or aging issues that come up. Are you okay? Believe me, just the anti-aging business in this world today is of around $68 billion. And is going to increase. And what I mean by anti-aging is just to look younger than what you look today. And the biotechnology is finding the solution for that. But India has a different problems. And today we are not going to talk about the entire healthcare business, but we are going to talk about healthcare for India masses. Now, India has first problem clearly, and I'll tell you first the problems and then talk about the, not solutions exactly, but some brighter side of it. Clearly, the purchasing power of Indian people and masses is very low. And for them, and this is I'm telling you from my personal experience, the healthcare is the last in their priority. After I left iFlex, today I spend a lot of time on philanthropy. I have my own charitable trust. I spend a lot of money on that. I travel. I just came back from Marathwada region. And last 3 years, we are running a program there to control the diabetes of people. In that particular region, and probably in India, we are diabetic as a major problem because we either fast or we feast. And therefore, body doesn't understand whether to store sugar or not to store sugar. We don't have a standard diet, a controlled diet. In that particular region, we found that there were more diabetic patients. And diabetes is a slow killer. It's a very, very funny disease, a problematic disease. So to improve the health and improve the productivity of people, because diabetic patient can't work properly, a lot of, today only I saw a photograph of a Chinese chairman, one of the province chairman who was dosing. And we had our prime minister, one of our prime ministers who used to dose all along. But these are diabetic problems. These are aging problems. And diabetic patients can't produce more, or their productivity is less. So to improve the productivity, we started actually testing them for diabetes. We distributed tablets, which are metformin-based tablets, basically, which are age-old molecule which is used for diabetic, basically to reduce the sugar level in the body. We distributed them for 2 years. And then we realized, or we expected people to buy them, because now they are feeling better, so that now they can actually get used to that curative, preventive measures and be better. Unfortunately, they can't buy it. They can't even test, because they can't go for the test. So we provide the free test, we provide the free tablets. But that doesn't work well. So how to prevent? And many of the diabetes, diabetes is one example I'm taking. But many of the diseases which are viral diseases or bacterial diseases basically are coming from a hygienic condition that we have in villages. Now, one of our friends who is unfortunately infamous now, Satyam Raju, who started, I've seen his wonderful work that he had done. He had adopted some 342 villages in Andhra Pradesh to provide potable drinking water. And believe me, the health conditions of those villages improved dramatically. Why? Because most of our villages, bottom pyramid, the basic health issues start because they don't have a potable drinking water. So I'm saying, don't even worry about medicine and hospitals for the time being. Just ensure that the hygiene conditions in the villages are maintained properly, and that is a basic health care that one can take in the bottom of the pyramid. But the total GDP spending on healthcare in India is, I think, hardly 1.5%. And unfortunately, out of that 1.5%, 85% probably does not reach to the people who need it. And 85% is a very optimistic number. Probably it is more than that. In India, 300,000 women die every year, so I'm told, during or post-pregnancy. If I tell you 1,000 jumbo jets crashed, I'm sure that will be the news item everywhere in the world. But 300,000 women die in this country for lack of health care is not a matter of concern for most of us. So we started working on that, and we started creating those dai mas in the villages. We started using the alternate medicine systems, because 80% of Indian masses actually use alternate medicine systems, and not the pharmaceutical drugs that we normally consume here, because they can't afford in the first place, and the accessibility is not there. So they have Vaidus, they have Vaidyas, they have Hakims, they have different mechanism of doing it. But the kind of cultural issues which are involved in those small things, I'm just setting a couple of examples, are so distressing at some point of time. And if I can give you a quick, probably I will not, because this time is less. But you will literally get tears in your eyes if you hear that story of a woman who was about to deliver and was not allowed to take a healthcare delivery system in that place, only because of cultural issues involved. And this is probably 200 miles from Mumbai, not far away. From that condition, we have to take people and provide them the healthcare system, which is preventive, and if at all the problem still occurs, then provide actually the healthcare delivery side. Now, using of IT comes probably later. But the hope that I have, when I also visit Shankar Netralaya, when I also visit Amrita Hospital, when I also visit Hridayalaya in South India, when I visit Satya Sai Baba Hospital, when I visit in Aurangabad where I work with Dr. Hedgewar Hospital, when I see this, I feel there is a lot of hope still. If you see Hedgewar Hospital, for example, in Aurangabad, and one is started now in Nashik also, they're using the high-tech stuff. They're using the technology, probably the same equipment that is available in Lilavati or Jaslok in Mumbai. and providing those services at the lowest cost to the people. And that is possible not because the money is available, but money is available to everybody. People are there to donate the money. But the doctors with passion who are ready to take that risk. My only concern, which I always talk to those doctors in Hedgewar especially, is that the salaries at which you're working today, and not like doctors in Mumbai or Delhi, what will happen when your son or daughter wants to get admission in medical college and they want to pay 10 lakh rupees? Where will you get the money from? So all of us love these doctors because they're doing great work to service the grassroots level healthcare services. But somebody else's father should be Mahatma Gandhi, not my father. Because then I suffer as a son or daughter. So as a society, I think when we want to create this healthcare system using technology for the masses of this country, which I don't believe it is impossible, but we are far away from that. I think as a society, we must come together to do that. And it's not just a question of money. The management students, for example, can take their summers in a rural area to advise these NGOs how to improve their management processes to ensure that the delivery of healthcare can be better, rather than seeking summers in MNC. We had tried that doing before, and I remember a few years back when I was on jury of one of these IMA, Indian Management Association's summer projects awards ceremony or something, where we had adjudicated one of the project which was done actually in the NGO in the rural area. And India has proven that. India has proven the servicing bottom of pyramid. Look at the SACHE program, which is probably now Harvard Business School case study. Nowhere in the world the shampoos and the oil, coconut oil and the tea is sold in small pouches. But that particular way of distribution or sales has become a revolution in the world. That people can't buy a 100 rupee box of tea, but they can always buy 1 rupee or 2 rupee sachet, and therefore the consumption has gone up beyond. So that is a revolution. It's an innovation. Nobody had thought before. Indians thought of it. Look at the cell phones. When I started using cell phone, vada pav was 50 paisa and cell phone call was 7 rupees. Today, vada pav is 7 rupees and cell phone call is 50 paisa. But this is because the masses have started using it and therefore cost per unit has come down dramatically. If you can do that in cell phones, as a father of 2 teenager boys, I hate that instrument now. Why can't we do that for healthcare, which is very essential for our life and quality of life, basically? So if we use that, I think we can reduce the cost. And Shankar Netralaya probably is one of the classic example of that. Hedgewar Hospital does a wonderful thing. Satya Sai Baba Hospital is doing a wonderful thing on that. And I'm sure many NGOs, these are the hospitals that I know of. I'm sure there are many hospitals, but these are all private sectors. The government hospitals or municipal hospitals, less said is better. They're supposed to do the service, but there is less said is better over there. But points I'm making very quickly now. First, preventive measures are must, and keeping the hygiene in the grassroots level is very important. Second is, any generic or genetic diseases which are probable there, use a medicine which is distributable, which is in mass production, which is not branded, probably generic. And this is again a different subject, but again generic medicine. Use of generic medicine. Use the technology for record keeping, for diagnostics, which are best instrument. Cost per unit will come down moment the number of people increase to use that. Charge everybody for that, but at a small amount. And make healthcare as a priority for people so that their quality of life, their productivity will go up, and that will benefit the GDP of this country. I mean, nobody's trying to link these things together, that how do I do, today we got the IIP numbers which are down, negative again 1.4%. How do we increase them is by keeping the health proper of these people. India has proven that in cell phone technology, it has proven in oil and shampoos. Why can't we do that in the healthcare? And please treat healthcare as healthcare and not as disease management. And probably these are the 3 messages I will give and stop here. My time is over. Go for question answers. So I'm supposed to stand here and wait for the question? Yeah? Yeah, please go ahead.
So thanks for the presentation. So my question is, you spoke about preventive. Is this something for preventive? Where is there a tool or anything in information technology which can predict what is going to happen after 2 years for that person?
No, I think preventive and predictive are 2 different things. Predictive, basically we talk about predictive diagnostics, right? Example I gave you was biomarkers, which can predict what diseases can come up in future and how to prevent them now. So prevention is sort of a effect of the predictive diagnostics, right? And technology is certainly, biotechnology technology, we don't assume that technology is only IT. Okay, technology is a biotechnology, maybe in future nanotechnology. But biotechnology is something which is definitely going to change the quality of your life in the world.
And my second question, if I may ask, the public healthcare system that we have, if compared to the private medical sector, there is a huge gap, a big difference. And that is the reason, if you look at the people in India, they are more inclined towards private medical sectors. So what is that the public healthcare service or the government can do to make sure that the gap is reduced?
I think the gap is so huge, unfortunately, that somebody will really dare to even say that to bridge that gap in the first place. Because you have to run public sector, healthcare as a business model and not as a charity. Unfortunately, even in private sector, if you see hospitals in Mumbai, few of the hospitals were started initially as a charitable organization. Right? But now they're trying to convert that into a corporatization and they're getting benefited by that. I think if we convert, this is my sort of suggestion or feeling or opinion, that if we corporatize even the municipal and government hospitals, appoint the CEOs there, and with all due respect, don't put an IS officer there, okay, then I think it can run as a business model. Run that as a business model, maybe it's a PPP, include the private entrepreneurs into that. But create an equity, create ESOP schemes there where the doctors are attracted, the right doctors are. Today, I can tell you, the hospital like KEM has got best of instruments and best of doctors. But ultimate result of the delivery is pathetic, basically because the capacity versus the actual inflow is absolutely unbearable. I can keep on talking on that, but we have to change it. Hopefully, there is some thinking which is going on. Since I'm in the sector now, and we have talked to a few governments or a few state governments and municipalities. I think there's a lot of change in the view of these governments to improve or change this dramatically. And probably sooner or later you will see some announcements coming up in Maharashtra and in Gujarat. The 2 states that I know of. Tamil Nadu is doing pretty well on that.
Great. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Ram, you don't have a question? I can't go without you asking a question. Ram and I have worked together for 15 years, so every day I've answered his question. Yep.
Sir, this year's Nobel went for stem cell research to Professor Yamanaka. That's a very good news for all the biotechnology enthusiasts. But what we see in India, on and off, some research is going on, like labs like CCMB and companies like Biocon are working on the biotechnology. But the products that you are talking about, as in not just the preventive, but a kind of
curative.
So not much research or industry application is going into it. That's, based on my understanding. So what do you think where we are headed, and the revolution that we are hearing for the past at least 10 years I'm hearing, sir, because I myself I'm a BTech in biotechnology. So we have been hearing it, but we're not actually able to see it on the ground. So where are we headed?
Okay, you want to listen to a little longer answer? Yes or no? Okay. Okay, one of my companies does, we run a company called StemMed, where we collect mesenchymal stem cells. I'm just using the term because you'll understand what I'm saying. And excuse me if others don't understand, but just to get people impressed that a chartered accountant can even talk biotechnology. So get mesenchymal stem cells from deciduous tooth. Okay, we have got a technology which is a patented technology where we can use some CDs and separate them or distinguish them, allow them to differentiate themselves into multiple. These are multipotent stem cells. Now these stem cells can regenerate tissues of various kinds. Okay, in the world today there are at least 4,500 projects happening, being worked on to create what you call it the Advanced Therapeutic Medical Product, ATMP, you understand that. So people are getting into ATMPs, and bone regeneration, for example, is something which is now proven available as a therapy in Europe. We are trying to bring that in India. And these are again done from the mesenchymal stem cells available from tooth pulp. Okay, once you do that, in future, if you ask me 10 years down the line, I mean, I run a 3-hour lecture on this. Okay, but my dream, what StemMed can do in future, maybe 20 years down the line, is that we will have a factory, which is a cell factory, whereby any of the cells, okay, for example, if you take a fibroblast cell from your skin, and as an anti-aging device, you culture them, multiply them, and inject them back at the old age, your skin will again start looking better, as young as it was before, right? So, and there are various types of cells that you can take from your body. You can store it, freeze it under cryopreservation, and multiply it and reintroduce as an autologous medicine, right? And once you do that, I run a cell factory, okay? That is one part, but which will happen in another 10 years, according to me, okay? 10 years max. But 25 years, I should be running an organ factory, whereby I take your stem cells, I create, God forbid, if your liver is a problem, rather than getting somebody else's liver or wait for somebody else's liver to come and fit into your body, which will 90% possibility is not, then create from your own stem cells your own liver and give it back to you. So that is 25 years down the line. But a lot of research is happening. Many of the pharmaceutical companies who were refusing this to happen before are now trying to get into this because they have ran out of their own molecules and R&D and portfolios. And therefore, I think this industry has a great future, and probably that will help. May not be my generation, maybe, how old are you? Oh, so definitely you will get it. Right? So you will have, at age of 90, you will be running marathon and looking 18. Yeah, but don't think like 18, think like a mature person, right? That's very important. Thank you. I got your answer, right? Okay? Thank you very much.